All right. Good morning. What's up, everybody? Matt Modi here with another live stream of Fast Break. Fast Break Bets presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Of course, I was fine before we went live. And then the second I go live, I have to clear my throat a little bit. But as you all probably know by now, we're live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11 a.m., giving out picks for every game on the NBA betting slate. As for today, it's admittedly not the best slate in the world. We have 6 games total. Couple games that we have back-to-back issues or some injury issues, but I'm still going to go through each game and giving out at least one pick. And I'm going to have 8 total with 5 units risked and with the potential to make it 6, depending on how injury news gets shaken out and stuff, which I will obviously get into when we get there. Last stream, real quick. We had 2 plays get refunded due to injury. And on the actual picks that we had, we only went 2 and 3, slightly down less than a unit. We were really good on Wednesday, so let's hope we can just get back into our winning ways, get ourselves in the green overall. The most important thing is while you're here, as I'm checking the chat, Jalen, appreciate you being in here, is to subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel, but more importantly, to get everything in the chat. On days like today where the slate isn't great, I will need your guys' help. I will need the chat's help just filling out the show a little bit. So any questions you have, if you want my advice on a play, or if you just want to get your favorite pick out for a game, or if you just have a general question, whatever it may be, get all your questions in the chat. I already see Jalen in here now. Thanks for the great picks. Hopefully no Vince Williams props. I can say there will be no Vince Williams. There is a Grizzlies game today, of course, because they play every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But there was not going to be Vince Williams. I think I'm just going to have to quit him. But yeah, so make sure you subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel. And we can just get right into these plays. The first play is in the Grizzlies versus Nets game, but we are not taking anything regarding Vince Williams. I've just taken the under. I know I normally have a lot of player props because that's kind of what I personally am just best at reading the market and stuff. But for this one, I went with an under, just a straight up under 209.5 points. This is at minus 120 odds at DraftKings. And I actually really, really like this play. I should track, because I don't play a ton of main lines, I should specifically track how well I do on main lines because I feel like my win percentage is a little bit higher, mostly because I'm a lot more selective. So Casey Phillips, everything after this is going to be a player prop, so don't worry. In ADR asking about Vince, not today. So this game, the under in the Grizzlies versus Nets. So the Grizzlies, they've just been so bad. Granted, their entire team is banged up, so you kind of understand why they've been so bad. But even recently, if you even look at the context of their entire season, they're just playing so much worse even recently. In their last 10 games, the Grizzlies are second worst in the NBA just in terms of overall efficiency. But that's while playing the 5th easiest schedule. So they're the second worst team in the NBA while playing the 5th easiest schedule. That's not great. But the line here is Nets minus 9.5. And I just couldn't lay 10 points with the Nets. So I went with the under, and I really do like the under here. I was able to use the Betting Pros app to just line shop across all the sports books to make sure that I did get the best odds, the best line. So it's a pretty good play because most books have this total below the number that we got it at. So the looking at just the matchups on the side of the ball, the Nets offense, all they really do is take jump shots. They don't get to the rim, and they don't do a lot of catch and shoot either. Really, the only catch and shoot guy is Cameron Johnson. A lot of it is pull-ups, mid-range, stuff like that. And that's one area in which the Grizzlies actually do defend pretty well, right? They can't defend at the rim, and they do allow a lot of inside penetration. So they are pretty bad with catch and shoot stuff. That's not really what the Nets do. They don't get to the rim at all. They just love the jump shot. And again, that's what the Grizzlies do defend pretty well. So I don't see the Nets having a great game offensively. Their offense also has just been struggling recently. Granted, their strength of schedule is a little bit tougher than what the Grizzlies are going through, but the Nets, they're only averaging 104.9 points per game since February 1st. That's the 4th worst in terms of points per game. And then if you just look at strictly offensive net rating, they have the 6th worst offense since February 1st. And then on the opposite side of the ball, the Grizzlies offense is just a total train wreck, a total nightmare. They literally have the worst offense in the NBA on the entire season, according to net rating. Since February 1st, they still have the worst offense in the NBA, and it's actually only getting worse. And again, that's despite the fact that they've had an easier schedule. So since February 1st, the Grizzlies are only scoring 101 points per game. That is dreadful. Now, looking at the Nets defense, they're not like the Celtics, they're not the Timberwolves by any means, but they're perfectly average. They have a decent amount of wing defenders. They have Nick Claxton is a good defender. They're perfectly average defense. They're 15th in the NBA in terms of net rating, defensive net rating since February 1st, which is perfectly acceptable. So 2-9 is a pretty low number in today's NBA. It's low for good reason, and I still like the under in this one. So that's our first play. We're only one pick deep, so now is the perfect time to talk to you about a 1-year premium subscription giveaway. So if you want a chance to win a premium 1-year subscription to Betting Pros, it's a place where you can bet smarter, not bet harder. All you need to do to be entered is subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel, which again, hopefully you're already doing. And then you just need to comment as well. Subscribe and comment, and you're good to go. A winner will be announced right here on the channel. So I would also recommend turning on notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes drop, and you can come in and claim your prize. 1-year premium subscription giveaway, comment, subscribe, and you're good to go. Next game, probably one of the two best games on the slate. Unfortunately, one of the teams is on the second night of a back-to-back, of course. It's the Clippers versus Bucks. And I'm taking Giannis. You might have heard of him. I'm taking him over 31.5 points. This is at -115 odds per the Betting Pros consensus. So as of right now, Giannis is listed as questionable to play. If he gets ruled out, we'll just get this refunded, so no issues there. But I really like this play from a matchup perspective. And real quick, Jalen asking about Anthony Davis. I do have a play in the Thunder versus Lakers that's a full unit play. It's not anything on Anthony Davis. I don't know if you're referring to like his points, rebounds, assists, or what. But I admittedly did not look into Anthony Davis a ton. But back to this Giannis play. So the Clippers defense, they've quietly been really bad recently at defending the paint. Since February 1st, they're allowing the 5th most points per game in the paint in the NBA. And look at the only teams worse than them. Somehow the Lakers are on that list, but outside of the Lakers, it's the Wizards, the Pacers, and the Spurs, like the 3 worst defenses in the NBA. And if you can't defend the paint, that's a death sentence against Giannis, who obviously Giannis feasts in the paint. He averages by far the most made and attempted field goals in the restricted area in the entire NBA by a wide margin. Another area in which Giannis is elite at is scoring in transition. He averages literally the most transition points per game in the entire NBA. He just runs the floor and just yams on people. He gets points in the restricted area and points via transition. The Clippers have the 6th worst transition. I don't know why I'm struggling with that. Transition defense in the NBA, the 6th worst in terms of effective field goal percentage, and they allow the 7th most transition points per game in the NBA as well. Now, looking at Giannis, he's only gone over 31.5 points in 4 of his last 10 games. But look at those 10 games as well. He's been playing a lot of those games. He's been playing fewer minutes because of blowouts. Like if you look at his minutes played per game in the last 10 and compare that to the entire season, he's averaging almost two fewer minutes per game over his last 10. Now, I expect this game to be close. Obviously, the Clippers did just play yesterday, and they beat the Timberwolves, so maybe they'll have tired legs, but it's an important game. I don't know why the NBA scheduled the Timberwolves and the Bucks in back-to-back games for the Clippers. That's brutal. Granted, maybe they didn't think that the Timberwolves would be as good as they are, but anyways. So these two teams, they haven't played yet this year. The Giannis hasn't played the Clippers, but in both games last year, he scored 54 and 35 points. So I'm pretty confident that Giannis is going to have a good game tonight. Dustin in the chat, appreciate you for tuning in. So that's Clippers Bucks. Next up, we're looking at the Blazers versus Timberwolves game, another team on the second half of a back-to-back. And I'm taking Anthony Edwards over 26.5 points. This is best offered at -113 odds per the Betting Pros consensus. The reality is, I really don't want much part of this game at all. The Blazers are really banged up, which we're going to get into. And then the Timberwolves, it's a tough game for them. They lost to the Clippers last night in a defensive slugfest, a really hard-nosed, tough game. Granted, they are at home, which is good. But if you just look at the matchup, this just screams Timberwolves against the Blazers, who have been really bad recently. But looking at Anthony Edwards, who is what we're going with in this game, he did score 27 points last night, so that is good. Obviously, that would have cashed this over. He also played 37 minutes, which is a lot, but he should play tonight. He's currently not listed on the injury report, and I'll give Anthony Edwards props. Like he says he doesn't want to ever miss games, and he really hasn't. He's played through questionable tags, and he's played on heavy minutes through questionable tags as well. And again, doesn't even have an injury designation for tonight. And on the year, Anthony Edwards has played in 8 back-to-backs. He's gone over 26.5 points in 6 of those 8 games, and he averages 37 minutes per game as well. So really nothing about him is limited on the second night of a back-to-back. So that's where I would go in this game. If you really want to play Blazers Timberwolves, I really like Anthony Edwards. So backing him it's not a hard sell for me. That's where I would go in this game. And again, it's just a good matchup, right? He's crushed the Blazers recently. Right before the All-Star break, these two teams played in like a two-day stretch. Scored 41 and 34 points in both of those games. Overall, the Blazers defense is allowing the 8th most points per game to Anthony Edwards' scoring profile, but they've only gotten worse recently with all their injuries. Brogdon and Scoot Henderson are obviously still out, as is Shaedon Sharpe. For this specific game, Matisse Thybulle is questionable, DeAndre Ayton is questionable, and Jeremy Grant is doubtful. So as long as Anthony Edwards just isn't super gassed after the Clippers game yesterday, he also did just have his first kid, so maybe he's sleep deprived. He should have a really good game tonight. Like everything about the matchup screams Anthony Edwards having a good game. So that's kind of where I went with this one. All right, what are we? 3 picks deep. We got a couple more, 5 more to be exact. But before I get into the next one, I want to talk to you about the Betting Pros Discord. If you're looking to up your sports betting game, look no further than the Discord community at Betting Pros. You can find it, bettingpros.com/chat. Betting Pros has gathered a team of expert handicappers giving you free picks for whatever time of year it is. That's what you can get free picks for. So when I was first doing these streams, it was college football and it was NFL. Now we're looking at NBA, obviously college basketball, NHL, soccer, golf, whatever your sport you're looking for, player props, live betting, futures, anything you can look for, you can find. Get in on the action, connect with like-minded sports betting enthusiasts such as yourself, elevate your own betting strategy. Join us in the Discord today and take your sports betting experience to the next level. Logan is in the chat. Thank you for joining. Dustin is saying, you already know, thanks for all your work. And he's asking, are you betting these yourself? Anything that has a lean is not being tracked officially. And I did not have my own money on anything that has like a unit designated to it. I am putting my own money on it and will also be officially tracked. So that's kind of how the streams work. And I log in. I haven't mentioned the app yet, but I log all my picks on the app as well. So if you're ever curious about what I'm playing, you can follow me on the Betting Pros app. But anyways, the next game, that we're going to talk about here, this is the Wizards versus Jazz game. And I'm going to have 2 in this one, actually. Technically 3 if you're counting a ladder play as part of it. But I'm taking Collin Sexton over 31.5 points, rebounds, assists. This is best offered at -111 odds per the Betting Pros consensus. If you're just looking at the entire year, you're thinking 31.5 is way too high for Collin Sexton. And I get it. He's only cashed the over in 18 of 61 games this year. But you have to look at why it's being priced at such a high number. Number one, the Jazz are pretty banged up. They're missing Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler. And those 2 guys being out, you wouldn't think would impact Collin Sexton that much because they're 2 big guys and Collin Sexton is a guard, shooting guard / point guard. But where Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler score is actually very similar to where Collin Sexton scores as well. And not only that, and I'm going to explain that obviously in more detail, but not only that, means also the Jazz defense is going to be worse, which means that the Jazz are going to need to score more to keep up. Luckily, they have a matchup against the Washington Wizards, who is just as juicy as it gets in terms of matchups in the NBA. In general, the Wizards defense is a complete and utter abomination. They have the worst defense in the NBA according to net rating. They allow the most points, the most rebounds, and the most assists per game as well in the entire NBA. And you're thinking, okay, maybe they've gotten a little bit better recently. No, since February 1st, they're still allowing the most points, rebounds, assists in the entire NBA. The Wizards are a beautiful combination of playing at the fastest pace in the NBA while also having a complete train wreck abomination defense. That just leads to silly stat accumulation. Now, looking at Collin Sexton specifically, I'm going to go through each category. Let's start with points. So the Wizards are giving up the most points per game, the most made field goals in the NBA since February 1st, specifically in the restricted area. So since February 1st, the Wizards are giving up the most field goals per game in the restricted area. With Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen out, Collin Sexton scores the second most points per game on the Jazz, specifically in the restricted area. So with everybody healthy, he averages the fourth most. With those two out, the second most. Next up, the Wizards give up the fifth most points per game if you look at in the paint, but not in the restricted area. So the fifth most points per game. Again, this is all since February 1st because I like looking at recent data. Fifth most points per game in the paint, but not in the restricted area. Collin Sexton, not even taking into account any injuries. If you just look at a healthy Jazz team, Collin Sexton both makes and takes the most field goals in that area for the Jazz. Next up, the Wizards give up the fourth most made field goals via the mid-range. With Lauri Markkanen out, Collin Sexton makes the most mid-range jump shots on at the Jazz. So with everybody healthy, he makes the second most. With Lauri Markkanen out, he makes the most. So if you're looking specifically at the matchup, and I see a lot of comments in here. I'll get into it after, or I'll answer all of them after the Collin Sexton one. So if you just look at the matchup, I probably like the points the most, but rebounds and assists is also a really good matchup. So I just combined it all together. If you're looking at assists, the Wizards are giving up the most assists per game, the Collin Sexton's playmaking style. They're also giving up the most assists per game, specifically to point guards in the NBA. If you look at rebounds, they're giving up the third most rebounds per game to Collin Sexton's rebounding style, and also the third most rebounds to point guards in the entire NBA as well. So I'm putting the full unit on his over 31.5 points, rebounds, assists. I'm also taking him to record a double-double as well. I'm just putting a quarter unit on that, but that's plus 800 odds. Obviously, the most likely scenario, if he gets a double-double, is going to be points and assists. But because the Wizards take and miss so many jump shots, so many shots in general, because they play at such a fast pace, I wanted to get in on the action if in the off chance he gets 10 rebounds, which admittedly is very unlikely. That's why I chose double-double as opposed to specifically 10-plus assists. So what's your overall record on NBA games? So on the stream, it's admittedly not great. We're down about 7.5, a little less than 7.5 units overall on these streams specifically. But if you follow the shorts that I do for Betting Pros, those are actually performing really well. So it's been a horrible case of bad luck, specifically on Wednesdays and Fridays and Mondays. Because on the entire season, if you look at every day, we're doing well, but these streams are not doing well. So got to be honest there. Any thoughts on DeMar DeRozan points? Yes, I do have some thoughts on that, and I will get to it. How do you feel? A couple people asking about John Collins rebounds. I know a lot of people that are on John Collins, and it makes sense because the Wizards give up a lot of rebounds specifically to centers. So he's probably going to play a lot with Markkanen, Walker, Kessler out. So as long as the odds are reasonable, I do kind of like that one, the John Collins rebounds. And Denny Advia makes sense as well. I know the Jazz give up a lot of catch and shoot. That's like where their defense is worst. I don't think Denny Advia is great in the catch and shoot area, but since the All-Star break, the Jazz also have the worst defense, or since the trade deadline, actually, the Jazz have the worst defense in the NBA, according to net rating. So Denny Advia, and he has been playing well. I know he blew up against a good Celtics defense, so I could see it. And then Logan, asking about limited on sports books, there's no way to not get limited. Fortunately, that's just the reality. Can't really get into that anymore. Anyways, all right. Thank you, everybody, for the chat. Please get any more questions in. I can answer them specifically as much as I can, as long as they're related to picks stuff. So the next game, or next pick, we're actually sticking in the same game. And I'm going with Tyus Jones over 11, or over 10.5, over 10.5 assists, 11 or more assists, plus 115 odds at DraftKings. So we're sticking in the same game, going with another point guard. This time we're taking Tyus Jones in his assist prop. I'm very confident he's going to be able to cash this over for us. So I mentioned just my last play that the Wizards are the best matchup specifically for Collin Sexton assists. Well, that also applies to Tyus Jones with the Jazz defense. Each guard, every player is going to have a different playmaking style. If you specifically look at the Jazz playmaking style, Tyus Jones playmaking style against the Jazz literally give up the most assists per game to someone of Tyus Jones's playmaking style. The Jazz are almost as good of a matchup specifically for point guard assists as the Wizards are. And sometimes you could make the argument even better because they've been a lot worse recently. And they should only be worse today with Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler out. Just look at what point guards have done to the Jazz recently in terms of assists. 7 of the last 8 have gone over their assist over-under. 7 of the last 8 point guards. That includes Steph Curry, who had in two games, he had 10 assists in both of them on an over-under of 5.5. That also includes D'Angelo Russell, who had 17 assists on an over-under of 6.5. He did actually have 10 more assists than his over-under. And these two teams played, the Jazz and the Wizards played at the end of January. In that game, Tyus Jones had 14 assists on a ridiculous, absurd 24 potential assists. So it's just a dream matchup for point guard assists. I get that the number 10.5 is pretty high, especially for the casual NBA fan might not know who Tyus Jones is, but he's been awesome recently. He's cashed this over 10.5 number in 5 of his last 8 games. And if you look at the only 3 games that he missed, the Thunder, good defense. The Cavs, good defense. The Clippers, not as good recently, but still a much, much better defense than the Jazz, not even close. And since February 1st, so looking at February and on, Tyus Jones leads the NBA both in potential assist and actual assist as well. So in a dream matchup, I think Tyus Jones is just going to crush this over 10.5 number for us. I'm not laddering it any higher than the 10.5 number we're getting at because I think the plus 115 is good enough. But I'm very, very confident in this play. So I only have 3 more after this one, but before I get to that, and then I'm going to answer some questions, I want to talk to you about the Betting Pros app. So you can find it, bettingpros.com/apps. A link to it is in the description of the video. What I love about the app is the prop bet cheat sheet. You can find all of Betting Pros recommended picks based on the current lines the sports books are offering and the Betting Pros projections as well. And they give you recommended picks and kind of tell you the EV, like what's the positive expected value of all of these plays. As I mentioned before, you can tail me on the app as well. You can follow me on the app, bettingpros.com/Modi is a link to my profile. That is also in the description of the video. And then I mentioned that we're doing a 1-year giveaway of the premium subscription. You can also get a free trial as well. So if you download the Betting Pros app, you can get access to a free trial of the premium offering as well. And then lastly, it syncs directly with your sports books. It's really, really convenient. You don't need to manually go in and try to track anything. It does it all for you. So I definitely recommend checking out the app, bettingpros.com/apps. All right, 3 more plays. 2 of them are going to be in the same game. The first one, and I'm answering, whose question was it? Jalen's question. DeMar DeRozan over, I'm taking him, this is Bulls Kings, I should say. I'm taking DeMar DeRozan over 23.5 points. This is best offered at -105 odds at DraftKings. Dustin asking, do I have a ladder threes play? Kind of. I'll answer that question in just after this DeMar one, and you'll understand what I mean. So DeMar DeRozan, this is now the 3rd straight game of the Bulls that I'm going with him. So he might be in Vince Williams territory or DeJounte Murray territory. But even though that he burned us last game, I'm going to continue to ride DeMar DeRozan in a plus matchup. And that's absolutely what he has tonight against the Kings. And as bad as it was last game for DeMar, he had been on fire prior to that. So he had last time against the Bucks, he did not play well. He only shot 5 of 13. And admittedly, like that was a good matchup. I probably should have given a little bit more credit to the fact that the Bucks defense has been playing much better recently. I should have considered that probably more than I did. So that's still, I mean, obviously that's an L. I'm not making excuses. That's an L. But prior to that Bucks game, he had scored 24 or more points in 7 of his last 8 games. And just because of the fact that he had a bad shooting night last night, I'm not going to just totally go off of him. Where does DeMar DeRozan eat? Where's his game? In the mid-range. He takes the most mid-range jump shots in the NBA on the year. And in the month of, since February on, I keep saying the month of February. We're in March now, which is crazy. But since February 1st on, he still takes the most mid-range jump shots in the NBA. And the Kings, since February 1st, they're allowing teams to both make and take the second most mid-range jump shots in the entire NBA. The second most since February 1st. They funnel everything into the mid-range, and they've been horrible at guarding it. These two teams played early February 3rd. DeMar scored 24 points in that game, and he did that by only shooting 5 of 14. The way he was able to get to 24 points is because he got to the line. He was 14 of 15 from the line. He could conceivably have another game where he gets fouled a ton because in the month of February, the Kings are fouling at the 6th highest rate in the NBA. And DeMar has generally always done a good job in his career at drawing fouls. And he's done a good job recently as well. He's averaging over 9 free throw attempts per game over his last 10. That's up from on the entire season. He's averaging about 8. And him averaging over 9 free throws in the last 10 games, that doesn't even include the game against the Kings in which he had 15 free throw attempts, because that happened over 10 games ago. So he probably won't shoot 5 of 14 from the floor in this game tonight. So even if he doesn't get to the line 15 times, he could still easily get us to the 24 number that we need him to get at. I love this play, DeMar DeRozan over 23.5 points. Next up, so this isn't an official play yet. What I want to look at is Keegan Murray 3-pointers when odds are released. The reason why is because, let me actually back up. There are no odds out yet for Keegan Murray because De'Aaron Fox is listed as questionable. As soon as we get clarity on De'Aaron Fox, and I would prefer Fox to be in the lineup, I'm going to heavily target Keegan Murray 3-pointers. The logic why, I'll keep it quick. The Bulls allow a ton of catch and shoot 3-point opportunities, a ton of corner threes. That's exactly where Keegan Murray shoots for the Kings. The most catch and shoot, the most from the corner. So I would make sure to follow both the BettingPros app. Check out the app as the day goes on to see when odds get released and if they have any positive expected value plays. Then also recommend following me on Twitter as well. As you can see my handle on the screen here at Jedi Modai, because I'll post something one way or another about Keegan Murray. Asking about Ayton points. That's not, there's so many guys banged up, so he might just have a high usage rate. But yeah, that does sound like a good play. Ayton under 16.5. He only scores from the inside, and that's where the Timberwolves defense is the best. So that seems like a good play to me. Again, I didn't heavily look into that one, but that sounds pretty good. So, okay, our final pick of the evening. Everything led us to this, not actually. Thunder versus Lakers game. I'm taking Shai Gilgeous-Alexander over 30.5 points, minus 120 odds at DraftKings. So kind of similar to Anthony Edwards, SGA is on the second half of a back-to-back, but it's such a good play, such a good matchup that I'm still comfortable riding with him, even though he is on the second half of a back-to-back. First of all, he's just been on fire recently. The Thunder have been on fire recently. Shai has gone over this number in 7 of his last 8 games. And in the one game he missed, he had exactly 30 points. But he scored 30 points in less than 30 minutes because they played the Wizards and they just beat the crap out of them. In this game against the Lakers, the Thunder are actually 1-point underdogs. So I think this game will be close. I think he'll play normal minutes. And I'm really not scared off of the back-to-back either. On the entire season, SGA, he's played in 10 games in which it's been on the second half of a back-to-back. And in those games, he scored 31 or more points in 7 of those 10. And one of the games that he missed was that same one against the Wizards where he scored exactly 30. So it's very, very close to cashing, making it 8 of 10. And this is just the perfect matchup for SGA in terms of how he scores and how their Lakers defense has been playing recently. Kind of similar to Collin Sexton, just in a different area of the court, as my dog clearly loves this play as well. So SGA, he lives in the mid-range. He lives in the pull-up. He is tied in the NBA. Now, he's not quite DeMar DeRozan level, but since February 1st, he's tied for the most made mid-range jump shots in the entire NBA, and he takes the 3rd most attempts as well. So again, since February 1st, makes the 2nd most mid-range, attempts the 3rd most. The Lakers, since February 1st, are literally giving up the most made and attempted mid-range field goals in the entire NBA. They're the only team worse than the Kings. So I mentioned that DeMar DeRozan's a mid-range merchant, and the Kings are the 2nd worst defense at guarding the mid-range. The Lakers are the only defense that's worse than the Kings. And then since February 1st, SGA, he's scoring the 2nd most points per game via pull-up jump shots. That's unsurprisingly another area in which the Lakers defense is struggling. They're giving up the most field goal attempts via the pull-up in the entire NBA since February 1st, and the 2nd most made. So the most attempted, 2nd most made, and they're giving up the most pull-up, specifically 2-point attempts as well, because SGA, he doesn't shoot a ton from deep. He mostly pulls up in the mid-range, which is a 2-point shot. So those two kind of obviously do go hand in hand together. Just showing you where SGA scores is where the Lakers defense is weak. The SGA, he's played the Lakers 3 games this year. He's cashed it in 2 of the 3. So I expect him to have another good game tonight. Isnana hoping we could double dip SGA. Yeah, exactly. I was on SGA yesterday and he cashed it for us. So let's hope he does it in 2 games in a row. And that's all we got. All the picks for every single game for today's NBA betting slate. Again, make sure to check out the app and check out my Twitter as soon as Keegan Murray odds get released, because I'm going to target his 3-pointers. I just need to see what it's at. I'm not going to blindly bet it, obviously. I need to see what the number is. I need to see what the odds are at. But that's the only pending one for tonight. Everything else, we're good to go. I appreciate everybody for watching. Let's hope to have a good day and have a good one.